talking with parents, and a question that has come up is how to help their child succeed in online learning. Their kids are used to going to school, and when you go to school, you go to your classroom, you hang your coat up, you mark that you're there for the day. You sit, the teacher gives a lesson, you do the homework, you go outside, you go to lunch. It has its rhythm and its routine. And in our homes, our routines are generally not the kinds of things that you do at school. And so uh, it's just really hard sometimes for the kids to focus and be successful in actually doing their online learning. What kinds of suggestions do you have for that?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Judy. It's an interesting question, isn't it? I use a great word. There's a rhythm to school. And that's the way we went to school. You go to school, you do your assignments, you obey the teacher's orders or commands or directions, you play with your friends at recess. So we just we know what that world is supposed to look like. In essence, both kids and adults know what success looks like in a traditional setting. And now that's thrown all out the window, and now we're online. Here's a great analogy I use all the time because of what COVID-19 has done is we're flying the plane and building the airport at the same time. Have you heard that analogy?
I have.
So it's a different world for all of us. So a couple of things to keep in mind. One is it's new for kids. Most kids, even though they're technology wise uh, a little bit more maybe savvy than those of us who are a little bit older, the learning part of the technology might be new to them, the formal learning part of the technology. And it's new to teachers as well. Teachers are really well trained in how to teach in a four-wall brick and mortar classroom. So it's good to keep in mind and just have a little bit of grace for all of us. We're still trying to figure it out. There are no easy answers when it comes to this online learning thing because it's new to all of us. Pretty much every child I talk to can't wait to go back to school. Is this stuff is stressful. You've probably seen that too, right?
I have.
So the question then is, as parents, how do we support our kids in getting the most out of the online learning that's in front of them? A couple of things. One is with your kids, focus on what they get to learn rather than what they have to do. See, in a traditional classroom setting, it's pretty clear what your tasks are. The teacher teaches a lesson, gives you some work to do to complete or some assignments or some projects. It looks a little bit different in an online format, doesn't it? Because I have to be maybe do some synchronous or asynchronous assignments where I have to be on Zoom and maybe then I have a packet or some worksheets to complete. It's just different. As a result, our students are going to do better when we get to focus on the cool stuff we get to learn rather than the micro tasks we have to complete. Certainly there are tasks kids have to complete. But what I would do is sit down with my kids and say, what kind of cool stuff are you learning? Or go through their materials with them and say, that looks interesting. You get to learn about penguins. Those sound really interesting. Let's learn together. Focus a little less on the micro tasks, like let's get this worksheet done so we can turn it in, make sure it goes in your backpack and take it back to school, which is a traditional setting. Just focus on, what do we get to learn? See, when I get to experience cool stuff and then I get to experience it with someone else, that's probably a little bit better for us. That's also a brilliant question to ask your teachers as well. Parents ask your child's teacher this question is, what kind of cool stuff do we get to learn? Then when I wrap my head around this cool stuff, like we get to do some experiments, we get to explore these ideas, then the doing makes more sense when we can focus on the kind of the cool stuff. There's another idea, and this is probably one of the most brilliant things to do to support your kids, and it's one of the more difficult ones. It's helping remove distractions in the environment. So you may have noticed over my shoulder on the shelf, can you see right over there what that is?
I sure can.
I'm a bit of a brain nerd, so we can geek out on brain stuff. That's actually a real human brain. That's how much of a brain nerd I am. So you can insert joke here. Bryan has a brain. Actually, I own just half a brain. That's an even better joke. Bryan has half a brain. So one thing we know about the human brain is that the brain can't multitask. What do we mean when we say multitask? Well, you can do more than one thing at a time. For example, you can take a walk and chew gum at the same time. You can have a conversation and drive a car at the same time, but you can only do one thing at a time that requires focus, attention, and concentration. Your brain actually cannot multitask. You can't pay attention to two different things at the same time. Why is that? Because it has to do with survival. Because your brain's focused on survival. That's the primary reason you have a brain, is to keep you alive. What does this mean for students in an online environment doing their work at home? We have to remove as many distractions as possible. So if a child is supposed to be watching an online lesson, they need to take their smartphones and set them aside, put them on silent, and maybe even put them in the other room. We need to remove as much of the background noise as possible. And it's probably not possible for most of us to sit a kid in a quiet room just all by themselves all day long. That's probably not best for them anyway. But they can't be listening to music and trying to do their homework at the same time. They'll fight you on that one. They'll say, yeah, I can listen to music and do my homework at the same time. Well, you probably not, because here's an experiment I've actually done with kids. Imagine this. Imagine you have your headphones in and you're trying to do your schoolwork. And then shuffling through your music list comes your favorite song. What do you do when that favorite song shuffles through? You
I
probably
start
stand
singing
up.
along.
Yeah, you sing along, you get up, you dance, you act a little goofy, you wander around. And then the question is, are you doing your schoolwork at the same time? Well, no, not really. As much as it's difficult, try to avoid asking them to multitask. So if a child needs to sit down and concentrate on a Zoom lesson, for example, for 15 minutes, try not to kind of ask them, how's it going? Try not to say, oh, don't forget to do this. Don't talk to them, and essentially, because I can either pay attention to what mom or dad is telling me, or I can pay attention to what the teacher is giving me on camera. The big idea is this: don't ask them to multitask. Actually, don't ask anybody to multitask, because nobody can do it, even adults. The brain just can't do it. Our brain has limits, and getting some of those extraneous extra distractions out of the way is a really good thing for our kids.
Well, thank you for that piece of advice. I think that's something that even us adults can think about sometimes too, because I know that there's a lot of times I'm in a meeting and I'm scanning the messages on my phone that are popping up. And when I see a message, sometimes it's like, oh, I can't forget to do that. And I've totally lost track of what the conversation in the meeting is about because I'm too busy making my checklist of what I have to do to respond to the message on my phone. So I think
Yeah,
that's one for all of us to listen to.
yes, it is.
Well, thank you for joining us. And I look forward to talking with you again.
You're welcome, Judy. My pleasure. Take care.